What's up guys, and welcome back to Pop Beat Breakdowns. In today's video I'm going to be breaking down a retro 80s synth pop type beat that I recently made for my beat selling channel. This beat today is the sort of beat that we want to do on this channel for a while because the 80s is a very iconic era of music, especially the rise of synths, especially with the disco elements. So I thought this would be a perfect beat for you beginners, producers to watch me break down and see if there's anything you can take away for it to apply in your own productions. So, if you're new to this channel, smash that subscribe button right now as it's the best way to support the channel. But let's not waste any more time and let's get into Logic and let's break down this beat. So we are now in Logic and this is the production. So for those of you who are regulars to my channel will know, but for those of you who aren't new to this channel, I'm going to disclose it anyway. So the order that these tracks are down is the order that I have added each element to the track. The reason I do this is basically for you guys so you can actually see and get an understanding of how the beat's been put together, because one of the things that I always find really challenging, especially when I was first getting into production, was how to actually go about building a production from the ground up. Where do you start? What do you add? So in these videos, I always like to show you, especially the first thing that I added and what I built the beat around. So hopefully you get the best understanding of how I built this track. So we're going to start from the top here with instrument number 1. And I'm just going to play you this. So this is from Contact, and this is electric guitar. This is the Electric Mint, and I used the Chicken Funk A. How this beat actually arrived around was just me messing around with the Electric Mint Session Guitarist by Native Instruments. I love this plugin. It is incredible for guitar. This and the Electric Vintage by Native Instruments. If you are wanting some guitar software, look no further than Native Instruments. They've got the picked acoustic, the strummed acoustic, and newer versions of it as well. And you've got melody versions as well, so you can literally play individual MIDI notes in, or you can have loops which you can play in. And there's those of you who know that, there's nothing wrong with loops. And I just found this as a really good way to sort of get inspiration for a beat. And I feel like this kind of started to set the vibe of what I wanted to go for it. So then I actually used another one as well, which is a muted guitar pattern. And the really cool thing is, as you can see here, because I'm playing chords in, the thing that's really good about Electric Mint is you can just play the chords in, and whatever the loop melody is, it will start playing to the chords rather than whatever the preset loop was. So that's even more cool. So together, I basically just started to build a track around this. So I guess like the whole thing, what I'm saying is, if you have a loop or this, it's all about that one individual idea which gets it started, and this was it, these two together, and that's how I decided, okay, right, let's build this beat. So next I did this, the bass. I wanted something quite lively for the bass. I wanted it to move a lot, so you can hear it's really bouncy, because 80s, it's feel good music, you want it to feel good. So you can use the Soul Electric bass, which is a preset in the bass section here, the solid Soul Electric bass. This is a very good bass sound for you Logic users, but the exact sound I'm using here is the Rickenbacker bass, again by Native Instruments, because I really do like Native Instruments software. You can see I've got a whole collection here because I've always found it just great. They sound great straight out the tin. And this is the bass line that I added in. So it's very simple to this stage, but it's groovy. So at this point I thought, okay, now I need to start building the drums, and Logic is really fun for building drums if you know what to do. So the first thing I did was, for the drums, if we just ignore what we've done so far, I started an empty kit. If you go into electric drum kit in the presets and you go down to empty kit, if you click here, this is where you can get your drum machine designer. So if you open the channel window, the DMD, so you can start picking your own sounds and everything. So if I wanted to pick my own kick sound, for example, click on kick on here, which I believe is C on the keyboard, and you can see you got C sharp 1, D1, so you can program in 2 individual keys on your MIDI keyboard, which is really handy, especially if you don't have a drum pad. And then if you actually click on the element and go to your preset library, you can custom for yourself pick your own kicks. And I've got kick, snare, and clap for this one because I use the kit just to build a very, very standard basic drum beat. So this is the beat. Add a little bit of reverb to the clap, and then just to keep things interesting, every 4 bars I just have that little added percussive element at the end, just to so the drums aren't extremely repetitive to the point where it's boring on the ears. So when you put it together with this, you've got something a little bit more on the beat with the drums, but then you got the bass and the guitars doing a really funky rhythm. So that combination creates a really nice bouncy track. Then I quickly just add to that, I threw in some hi-hats, which I've just used the Brooklyn drum kit, and I've just done some hi-hats here. You can really hear now this is starting to build. For hi-hats is a very interesting one to mix. When it comes to MIDI, especially in Logic, I always like to do a little bit of a rise, especially in the high end, do a high boost just to add the brightness to the hi-hats, just so they cut through a little bit better in the mix. And another thing as well, then, is we want to think about the hi-hats. We always kind of want at the sides of the mix, because if you have the hi-hats in the middle, there's other elements, especially because there isn't a vocal to this beat today, but you always got to have in mind there's going to be a vocal, which will be at the center of the mix. So the hi-hats is one of the things that goes out to the side. So using a sample delay, I've explained on the channel what sample delay does before. If you don't know what sample delay is, basically it takes the same signal, splits it into two, and it will delay the second signal slightly out of whichever side of your ear you program it to. So I've got a delay to the right, so you hear out the left ear first and then the right. But because you're hearing out the left ear first and then the right, you get this kind of perceived feeling that the hi-hats are actually more biased to the left-hand side of your ears, but they're still split out to the sides. So you don't get any of that phase issues because it's delayed, and it's really good as well, by the way, on vocal harmonies. So if you want to double up, or guitars as well, if you want to double track guitars, sample delay, it is a very good plugin to know, and that's just the Logic stock, does exactly what it says on the tin, so no complaints there. Now, with that all together, I wanted to start now adding the 80s retro synth vibe to it now. We want to really start to get it going. And for you Logic users, you'll be glad to know that every single synth henceforward is a Logic preset which I built up to create my own sounds. So the first one we start with is the Big Sweeper, which is a retro synth preset, I believe. Yes, it was a retro synth. I had to remember what I added to this. So the Big Sweeper is just in the synth pads of the Retro Synth by Logic. The Retro Synth, by the way, it just has all the sounds you need for this kind of vibe of music. So I started with something playing the root note. And I added a Dark Swirl pad, which is another pad in the Retro Synth, playing some chords. Really nice, warm pad. And then we go to the synth strings of the Retro Synth, and exact same thing going on here. So I just doubled across the MIDI, and then we add the bright strings, so you can hear that I'm now building this wall of synth sound. And then I'll also show you this one, the classic analog pad down the bottom here, the last one. This is more low down, covering the low end of the mix. It just, again, because it's all about building a wall of sound, you're starting to build the atmosphere, the ambience for the track now. And this is synth pop, like 80s back then, they went crazy with it, especially like some sort of artists and bands that I love, like Aha, The Human League. So they incorporate synth so well, and a lot of them sounds that you hear in them original 80s tracks you can find in the retro synth. So I highly recommend that you play around the retro synth if you're trying to do any sort of synth pop or synth wave. Now, at this point I'm going to play I wanted to add more melodic stuff, because 80s music you listen, there's a lot of like arpeggiated synths and melodic stuff going on. So that's when I added all this in, because I wanted to start building up a lot of movement in the synth, so it's not just block, one chord, block, another chord. So we start off with the dark background, which is a pad in the retro synth. Nice, high, bright, sort of like belly sound, even though it's a pad. Really starting to build it up. So then I added in the synth pop strings next. This is the chords, just arpeggiated. This is one of my favourite sounds in the retro synth. And I always use it. You can hear there was a little bit of mistake in the quantizing, but I actually kept it in because I feel like it added something different. So again, synth pop strings, these are all presets in the retro synth. I can't emphasize this enough for you beginner Logic users. There's so many good presets in Logic. And even though I've spent a lot of money on debatably, like especially Native Instruments, the sort of plugins where I feel like I could get the synth sound, I still find myself going back to the retro synth because that's how good it is. Now the next thing I did was the 80s wave belt, which is a preset from the keyboards. because at this point I thought, okay, I got the synths, but I just needed something with a little bit more of catchiness to it. So this actually is the hook of the song, the hook melody, and this I spontaneously came up with playing around with the root chords of the song. So you can see there's two layers. This has a chord section, but then the actual melody. This was just played in to be background, but then I liked this so much, this ended up becoming the finished hook. So I've stacked this with two things for the main hook. So this is the first one, as you heard. Very happy melody. And I stacked it with digital colours, which is the classics in the presets of synths, and you can find it right there if you want this. And I put it up an octave, 12 semitones, which is an octave. So if you want to know how you can actually put stuff up an octave so it's higher, all you have to do is hold down Option on your keyboard and then the arrow, and you can literally adjust up and down through the keys. So if you got 12, it's up an octave. If you go down 12, it's down an octave, and obviously 24 is 2 octaves, 36 is 3. You know, it's simple maths. But so yeah, this digital colors one then became the main hook. And again, one thing I always encourage on this channel is instrument stacking to create your own original sound. It just sounds so much better when they're stacked together. If I just had this as the melody, it sounds okay, but I feel like it's missing something. So when you have them both together, just a little bit more ambience to it, and I love that. There's also an incredibly long delay, as you will hear it tailing out here. And then the last thing that's just been added is crashes. So you got your crash here, which you'll hear, which I'll just quickly play for you. And then I've also just reversed it as well to create a little riser. For those of you who don't know how to reverse, if you're new to this channel, by the way, if you click on the actual audio file, you can only do it as audio, you can't do it as a MIDI. You'd have to bounce MIDI out to audio to be able to do this. But once you go bounce to audio, click on the track, go to File, Functions, and then in Functions is you hit reverse, and it will reverse the audio for you. So it's literally as easy as that. Then you line it up to where you want to, and then boom, you've got yourself a riser. So that's basically the track all together then. When you put all the elements together, you get a retro 80s synth pop type beat. I'm now going to play this from a designated point in the song so you can listen to this, and then we'll rendezvous at the end of this video. So yeah guys, that was my breakdown of an 80s retro synth pop type beat. If you enjoyed this video, smash that subscribe button right now, as it is the best way to support the channel. And also comment below any genre of music you want me to do a beat breakdown of in a future video. But yeah guys, I'm going to leave the video there for today. So thank you for watching, keep making music, and I will see you in the next video.